This should almost be a comedy piece. Matter of fact, I think this is a comedy piece that I'm going to read you today from Zero Hedge. Household wealth has never been higher relative to income. And there's a little catch here. And that's what I want to talk about in just a second. This is a very short article. For 45 years until roughly 1994, the average wealth to income of American households held steady at around 4.9 times. Then the stock bubble started, first under Greenspan, then Bernanke, and now Janet Yellen, and really every other central bank. And as a result, as of Q1 2017, for the first time in the United States history, household wealth reached a point where it is over 6.6 times larger than inflation-adjusted household disposable income. Whoa. This is great news, right? There's no problems. 44 million people on food stamps when there was just 24 back in 2007 and 8, 24 million? No, that's not possible. Everyone's more wealthier. So how is this possible? If we're that, it used to be 4.9 times, it's 6.6 times. Record-breaking, by the way. We are more wealthy, more household wealth than ever before. It's funny because we just don't see it. Well, hold on. There just might be a couple reasons why. Stand by. As we showed earlier today, the surge in wealth, driven almost entirely by new all-time highs in the stock market, S&P, pushed this measure of relative exuberance. Think of it as the country's price-to-earnings ratio, if you will, being out of control, above the housing boom peak of the mid-2000s and well above the dot-com bubble-driven highs of the last 1990s. As Alliance Bernstein economist Joe Carson recently wrote in a note, economic and financial history do not always repeat, but sometimes they do. The logical next question is, how much higher can this disconnect go before something snaps? That's it. That's the end of the article. But the S&P drove this higher. Well, what about house prices at their all-time insane highs once again? You have two things, housing and S&P stock market. But forget housing. I don't even want to talk about housing right now. Let's just talk about the stock market. They've pumped this up. And because they say, well, we know all these people have 401ks and retirement accounts tied up in the stock market, that counts as household wealth. You own it, it's counted as wealth. Your house, you own that, or even if you're mortgaging it, that's household, that's an asset, that's household wealth. Okay, but because my house is worth a whole bunch of money, overpriced as it is these days, but even if it was if insanity was back to normal, and your house was normally priced, we'll call it average price, not average price, but whatever, within the realm of reality, and the stock market was or wasn't as high, it doesn't matter. The point I guess I'm trying to make is that you can't touch these items. You can't touch the stock market. 401k, you can't touch it. You're still working. You've got 20 more years of work left in you before you can touch that, before you're the proper age to take that out. But on paper, you're more wealthier than any other generation. But I'm still struggling to pay my bills. I still live paycheck to paycheck. I am one of the 50% of Americans who can't, not me, I'm just saying, who can't come up with a $500 additional fee. Like if my car broke down, I would have to borrow or get a credit card. But you're telling me I'm more wealthy than I have ever been before, only because the stock market is high. So what you're telling me also is if the stock market crashes, that whole 6.6 times number goes down to horse crap. Correct. So us being quote-unquote wealthier than previous generations is only contingent on the stock market doing very well. And let's assume the government, the Fed, they just want to let that horse keep riding. There's never going to be another stock market crash again, and they're just going to let it go. It's just going to keep climbing, like for whatever insane reason. Let's just pretend. And you're in your 20s, and you just got a normal job, and it might be your career. Therefore, I'm going to be in this industry or this particular job for like the rest of my life, whatever. This is it. 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, 60 years old, approximately 40 years later, ready to cash out of that retirement. So for the 40 years, that so-called extra wealth you had compared to other people prior to you is not even touchable. You're paying back your student loan debts. You're paying off your credit cards. You can't afford to do stuff. I'm living with mom and dad still, etc. We're getting married. Can't have children because it's going to cost too much, etc. But on paper, you are rich. That's why this is a load of crap. This is a load of crap. Unless they said somewhere in here, those who had Bitcoin, because they can cash out of Bitcoin or any other crypto anytime they wanted. No early penalty fee. Go take 10% of your 401k for early withdrawal. But you can't take it out anyways because you have a job. Therefore, you're not in a bad, what do they call it, a hardship, financial hardship. You can't qualify. So actually, the 10%, all that, it's not going to happen. Best case, borrow against your 401k. That's it. That's all we got for you. And you're going to pay back several percentage points in interest. But the interest goes back to you. It's the best we can do for you. Right. So if you want your wealth that they say you have now, you're going to have to tap into that 401k, take the early penalty fee, or, again, if you can't, I'll just take a loan. Can you lend me my own money, please? Can you lend me my own money? Isn't that amazing? Can I please have mine? Well, you can't have all of it, but we'll give you up to maybe 40, 50%, depending on the plan you have with us. But I need it all right now. But it's my money and I need it now. No, 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 no. It's your money, but you don't hold it. And like everything else, these guys like Jason Force say, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And we hold it, and you don't own it. You just think you do. And on paper you do. And then when you need it the most, the markets are going to crash, and all this wealth that they told you had for 40 effing years had just been wiped out. But you did not. You were wealthy. You just couldn't touch it for those 40 years, and now you're ready to grab it and use the wealth. It's gone. Unless you had some cryptos, maybe some gold and silver. Again, waiting for them to take off. Come on, gold and silver. What's happening? Someone just dumped $4 billion of gold, paper gold on the market, as Comey was speaking. $4 billion right on the market. Here you go. Right. Anyways, this one's a short and sweet one. That's as short as it's going to get. On to the next ones.